You can't just walk away from this. Watch me. This isn't over!
The Beverly Hilton ballroom sparkled with Hollywood's finest. 500 people in tuxedos and evening gowns filled the grand hall for the 1970 Golden Globe Awards after-party. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing lights across the room as champagne flowed and laughter echoed off the marble walls. But in the next 10 minutes, that laughter would die completely. Clint Eastwood, Hollywood's rising action star, stood near the bar with a group of young actors. His success in A Fistful of Dollars had made him confident, some would say too confident. Across the room, Dean Martin sat at a corner table, quietly sipping his drink. The legendary crooner, comedian, and member of the famous Rat Pack looked tired. His recent divorce had been splashed across every tabloid in America. What happened next would shock everyone in that room and teach Hollywood a lesson about respect that people still talk about today. Before we continue with this incredible story of how Dean Martin handled disrespect with pure class, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss more stories about Hollywood's golden age. Dean Martin wasn't just any entertainer. At 53 years old in 1970, he had built a career that spanned 3 decades. He started as a crooner in the 1940s, singing in small nightclubs across Ohio and Pennsylvania. His smooth voice and natural charm caught the attention of Jerry Lewis, and together they became one of comedy's greatest duos. For 10 years, Martin and Lewis ruled Hollywood. Their movies made millions. Their live shows sold out instantly. But in 1956, they split up, and many predicted Dean would fade into obscurity. Instead, he proved everyone wrong. He joined Frank Sinatra's Rat Pack, became a solo singing sensation, and launched The Dean Martin Show, one of television's biggest hits. By 1970, Dean had recorded over 600 songs, starred in more than 50 films, and won the hearts of millions with his laid-back style and genuine kindness. Behind the scenes, he was known as one of the nicest men in Hollywood. Crew members loved working with him. Other stars respected him. He treated everyone, from studio executives to parking attendants, with the same courtesy. But that night at the Beverly Hilton, Dean was going through the hardest time of his life. His 22-year marriage to Jean Beager had just ended. The tabloids were brutal, calling him a has-been, and suggesting his best days were behind him. At every event, photographers pushed cameras in his face, asking painful questions about the divorce. Clint Eastwood, on the other hand, was Hollywood's golden boy. His spaghetti westerns had revolutionized action films. At 40, he was strong, handsome, and riding a wave of success that seemed unstoppable. Movie studios were throwing money at him. Young actors wanted to be like him. And that night, surrounded by admirers, he felt invincible. The Beverly Hilton's grand ballroom buzzed with conversation. Studio executives discussed their next big projects. Actresses in designer gowns posed for photographers. Waiters in white jackets moved smoothly through the crowd carrying trays of champagne and appetizers. Dean sat alone at his table, occasionally nodding to people who passed by. He had arrived late, hoping to avoid the crowd. His dark suit fit perfectly, but his eyes carried a sadness that expensive clothes couldn't hide. A few loyal friends had stopped to check on him, but mostly people kept their distance. In Hollywood, divorce was like blood in the water. People either circled to gossip or swam away to avoid association. Clint stood near the bar with a group of younger actors, all riding their own waves of success. They laughed loudly, their voices cutting through the general murmur of the party. Someone told a joke, and the group erupted in laughter. That's when Clint noticed Dean sitting alone across the room. "Hey, look who's here," Clint said, loud enough that people nearby turned to look. He pointed his whiskey glass toward Dean's table. The king of cool himself. Although these days I guess he's more like the king of couch. The group around Clint chuckled nervously. A few people shifted uncomfortably. In Hollywood, you could sense when something was about to go wrong, and several veterans in the room felt that familiar tension building. But Clint didn't stop. Success had made him bold, and the alcohol had loosened his tongue. "I mean, look at him," Clint continued, his voice growing louder. "Sitting there all alone. Where are all those Rat Pack buddies now? Sinatra's probably too busy to hang out with yesterday's news." More heads turned now. Conversations began to die as people tuned into what was happening. Dean heard the comments but didn't react. He simply took another sip of his drink, his face expressionless. A woman in a red dress near Clint's group whispered, "Maybe you should stop." But Clint waved her off. "You know what Dean Martin's problem is?" Clint said, now speaking loud enough that half the room could hear. "He thinks charm can carry you forever. But charm doesn't make hits anymore. Action does. Times have changed, but some people are stuck in the past." The ballroom had grown noticeably quieter. Waiters stopped moving. Conversations ceased. Even the band seemed to play softer. Everyone's attention was now on the unfolding drama between the young action star and the legendary entertainer. Dean set his glass down slowly. He looked at Clint for the first time, his famous brown eyes studying the younger man with an expression that was impossible to read. Some people expected him to leave. Others thought he might confront Clint directly. But Dean did neither. One of Clint's friends tugged his sleeve. "Come on, man. That's Dean Martin. Show some respect." "Respect?" Clint laughed. "For what? For making the same tired lounge act music for 30 years? For playing the drunk in every movie? Please. I respect talent and relevance, not faded glory." The insult hung in the air like smoke. Several older Hollywood veterans looked genuinely shocked. A producer near the back muttered, "He's going to regret this." An actress who had worked with Dean in the 1960s looked ready to march over and defend him herself. But Dean remained seated. He picked up his glass again, took another slow sip, and set it back down with careful precision. His face showed no anger, no hurt, no reaction whatsoever. And somehow that made the moment even more uncomfortable for everyone watching. Clint, emboldened by the lack of response, decided to deliver what he thought would be his knockout punch. "Tell you what, Dean," he called across the room, his voice dripping with mockery. "Why don't you sing us one of those old songs? Maybe that's Amore? Oh wait, that's about love. Probably not the best choice given your recent situation." The room gasped. The comment about Dean's divorce crossed a line that even Hollywood's thick-skinned crowd recognized as cruel. Several people looked away, embarrassed to witness such disrespect. A television producer near the door actually left, unwilling to be part of whatever happened next. For a long moment nothing happened. Dean sat there, completely still, his drink in front of him. The 500 people in that ballroom held their collective breath, waiting to see how one of Hollywood's biggest legends would handle being publicly humiliated by one of its rising stars. Then Dean Martin did something unexpected. He smiled. It wasn't an angry smile or a forced smile. It was the same warm, genuine smile that had charmed audiences for 3 decades. He stood up slowly, adjusted his jacket, and began walking toward Clint. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, creating a clear path between the two men. Clint straightened up, trying to look confident, but something in Dean's calm demeanor made him suddenly uncertain. This wasn't the reaction he expected. He had wanted to embarrass Dean, maybe make him angry or defensive. But Dean's peaceful approach was somehow more intimidating than any confrontation. Dean reached Clint's group and stopped about 3 feet away. He looked at the younger man with those famous eyes that had seen everything Hollywood could throw at a person and survived it all with grace. "Son," Dean said quietly, his voice carrying perfectly in the silent room, "I've been in this business for 30 years. I've sung in rooms smaller than your trailer. I've told jokes to audiences who didn't laugh. I've been called a has-been more times than I can count. And you know what I learned?" He paused, and you could have heard a pin drop in that massive ballroom. "I learned that success isn't about how loud you talk or how tough you act. It's about how you treat people when you don't have to. It's about kindness when nobody's watching. It's about grace under pressure." Clint opened his mouth to respond, but Dean held up a gentle hand. "You're talented, Clint. No question about that. Your movies are great. You've got a bright future ahead of you. But talent without character is like a song without soul. It might be technically perfect, but it doesn't move anyone." The room remained frozen. Every eye was on Dean, and you could see people nodding slightly in agreement. "You mentioned my divorce," Dean continued, his voice still calm but carrying an edge of steel now. "Yes, my marriage ended. Yes, it hurts. Yes, the tabloids have had a field day. But that's my private pain, and I'm dealing with it the best way I know how. Making fun of someone's personal tragedy doesn't make you tough. It makes you small. Clint's face had gone from cocky to uncomfortable. The friends around him had all taken small steps backward, distancing themselves from the situation. "Here's what I want you to understand," Dean said, and now his voice carried the wisdom of all those years of ups and downs, successes and failures, triumphs and heartbreaks. "In this business, your success can disappear overnight. The cameras stop calling. The studios move on. The audiences find someone new. It happens to everyone eventually, even you." He let that sink in for a moment. "And when that day comes, and trust me it will, you're going to need something more than box office numbers to stand on. You're going to need the respect of your peers, the goodwill of the people you worked with, the reputation for being a decent human being. Because that's what lasts when everything else fades." Dean took a step closer to Clint, close enough that only those nearby could hear his next words clearly, though the room was so quiet that many caught them anyway. "I don't need to prove anything to you or anyone else here tonight. My work speaks for itself. My character speaks for itself. And 30 years from now, people will remember me not just for the songs or the movies, but for how I treated people along the way." He paused one more time, looking Clint directly in the eyes. "Can you say the same?" The question hung in the air like a challenge and a teaching moment all at once. Clint Eastwood, Hollywood's tough guy who played fearless cowboys and hardened detectives, couldn't meet Dean Martin's gaze. He looked down at his drink, his face red with embarrassment. I apologize, Mr. Martin," Clint finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're right. That was out of line. All of it." Dean nodded slowly, then did something that shocked everyone even more than his calm response. He extended his hand to Clint. "We all make mistakes, kid. It's what we do after that defines us." Clint shook his hand, and the room erupted in applause. Not the polite applause of a Hollywood party, but genuine emotional applause from 500 people who had just witnessed a master class in dignity and grace. Dean returned to his table, and for the rest of the night, people came by to shake his hand, to thank him, to tell him stories about how his music had touched their lives. The earlier sadness in his eyes had been replaced by something else. A quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing you handled a difficult moment with class. Years later, Clint Eastwood would tell interviewers that the encounter with Dean Martin changed him. "He taught me more about being a man in 5 minutes than I learned in years of playing tough guys," Clint said in a 1985 interview. "He showed me that real strength isn't about how hard you can hit, but how gracefully you can take a hit." The lesson from that night in 1970 went far beyond just Clint Eastwood. It spread through Hollywood like ripples in a pond. Young actors heard the story and learned that talent without character was worthless. Executives remembered it when making decisions about who to work with. Directors shared it with temperamental stars who needed a reality check. Dean Martin continued his career with the same grace and dignity he showed that night. His show remained popular. His concerts sold out. And when he passed away in 1995, the tributes weren't just about his incredible talent. They were about his kindness, his humility, and his character. The Beverly Hilton incident became legendary in Hollywood circles. It's a story told to remind people that success is temporary, but how you treat others is permanent. It's a reminder that being famous doesn't give you the right to be cruel. It's a lesson that respect is earned not through insults and put-downs, but through consistency, kindness, and grace under pressure. In a business known for egos and cruelty, Dean Martin showed that there was another way. He proved that you could be successful without being mean. You could be confident without being arrogant. You could be tough without being cruel. And perhaps most importantly, he showed that how you respond to disrespect says more about your character than the disrespect itself. If this story moved you and reminded you of the importance of treating others with respect, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed someone handle disrespect with incredible grace? Your story might inspire others. And remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Class never goes out of style. The lesson Dean Martin taught that night remains as relevant today as it was in 1970. True strength isn't about putting others down. It's about lifting yourself up through character, kindness, and dignity.